Hello, sir.
Oh, Chezi.
Sorry about that.
I thought you were in a very dark room.
I was in a dark space. I was
Yeah.
letting you see my shadow at the time, but now I'm feeling I'm ready to present myself.
Mhm.
Let me just invite people if they want to join. Um, all right.
How are you doing?
I am doing well, all things considered. Um, Family's doing well. Work is going well, thank God.
Mhm.
Um, Getting anxious a little towards my move out of Jerusalem and into my new place.
Mhm.
So that's happening. Not anxious really about the move, more anxious about the physical move, all the family, the kids, just like the logistics of that,
Yeah.
all of that. So that is what to consider over there. On a as a Israeli civilian and a person of the world, I'm quite saddened by the situation we have right now. I've been
Mhm.
having a bit of a tough week this week. Just just not really happy where we are. I mean, I try to remain optimistic, but
Mhm.
it looks like we're doing mistake after mistake. So that's quite frustrating. Um, but I try to remain optimistic. Yosef shared something on the Discord that made me very sad. Um, but just sort of, he was talking about how a discussion these people were having about how if King David, who God loved, his hands were too bloody to build the temple, right? How are we, the nation of Israel in 2024, who is not necessarily at David's level? How are, with all the blood on our hands right now, right? How could we be ready for a redemption, so to speak?
Mhm.
So obviously, there's much to unpack over there, but it reminded me. I'm going to post this later on the Discord, but I was reading this book by Rabbi Cardozo, Nathan Cardozo. It's called. I read it in Hebrew. It's an English book about halakha as rebellion, halakha kemered in Hebrew,
Mhm.
and it it uh, it ends talking about sacrifices, and it asks if we no longer need sacrifices because we've transcended that and we're at a much higher and sophisticated spiritual level.
Yeah.
On the flip side, it says, or perhaps we won't have sacrifices because, right now, we can't imagine that because we're at such a low level. We're at even a lower level than the pagans were, who could appreciate what the idea was of true sacrifice, and we're not even there. So
Mhm.
the latter reminds me sort of what Yosef is talking about, and that it saddens me. It hurts my heart to think about those things. So
Mhm.
I'm, as they say, shlomi kashlom ami, and right now my my nation is in pain, and I'm in pain. So
Mhm.
that's sort of where I'm at. How
Yeah.
was Chag?
The Chag was. Yeah, I was at my sister's, so it was nice to be with family a little bit.
In New York?
In New York, in New Jersey, New York. Um,
But you said this time it was a different seder though, no? Because usually they don't host, and now they hosted. Wasn't it like a first time for people, or
well, first time in the U.S. for them because they moved to New Jersey last summer.
so? If you don't mind me asking, how was that? How was the seder, and how do you feel it was any different for you from where you were last year to where you were today? And do you feel like your change was present at the seder?
Um, Not as much, honestly, because it was. I didn't. It was it was a big. Like there were a lot of people,
Gotcha. It
and
wasn't
there were.
like intimate family.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was more. Yeah, it was. bringing different people in, and there are a lot of, and it was kind of nice. I mean, I think that maybe hopefully I enabled it in a certain way to move to be a little bit more organized and more intentional. But it was
Okay.
it was nice to have people, and like there were a lot of kids, and we tried to like make it a little interactive for them as well. So
Good conversations to be had.
Mildly, it wasn't too much. It wasn't like too. It was more just hosting people and seeing. Like there are parts of my family that I haven't seen for a while. They're like
So
American.
it's always nice to reconnect.
Yeah, so it was mostly about that, unless necessarily about the holiday itself. Even though the Seder Dagada was there, but yeah.
You know, like the just chattings are like the original rabbis sitting in Bnei Brak, and they had to be reminded that it's like Zman L'Kriyat Shema, because like after like a 7-hour split with Jacob, he's like, it's morning time. You got to get to work. All right. Okay, so is this where we were?
Yeah, this was the last one that we did.
Right. The difference of what we learned from Achitofel, even though we only learned 2 things from him, and he also wanted, he also did not want for the benefit of David. Nevertheless, David still saw him this way. So how much more so when someone that we actually like gives us ideas? We got into that. We got into just like the one word or the one thing that we learn from every single person. So of course we have to show them respect and all these good stuff. Yeah, this was like all of these are sort of I don't know. To be honest, this is not my favorite parak, but
yeah, I mean, the first section, it seems like maybe there's like 3 sections here. The first one is like Miu Chacham Alomed Mikol Adam. It kind of echoes that. Like David learning from
we're focusing on the studier right now, right? So like we already spoke about the if the last 5 were the last 4 were more like sort of bird's eye view of like how the interaction should be, then 5 was more of like a breakdown of like, you know, those numbers of the 4, the 7, the 10, just like looking at things from like a more transcendent perspective. And now we're pushing right down into the individual, all the way to like, you know, the one thing you learned from him, the one word you will learn from him, or like you were mentioning earlier, like how they're behaving. So I think, well, what's number 4? Number 4. Right. Okay. So now we're even going further into the conversation about the Torah itself. Okay. And how it's being studied. All right. So do you want to take it away?
Yes, I'll take it away. כך היא דרכה של תורה. פת במלח תאכל, ומים במשורה תשתה, ועל הארץ תישן, וחיי צער תחיה. ובתורה אתה עמל, אם אתה עושה כן, אשריך וטוב לך. אשריך בעולם הזה, וטוב לך לעולם הבא.
Okay.
And so, in English,
go ahead. So take it away.
Such is the way of Torah. Bread with salt you shall eat. Water in small measure you shall drink. And upon the ground you shall sleep. Live a life of deprivation and toil in Torah. If so you do, fortunate you are and good is to you. Fortunate are you in this world, and it is good to you in the world to come.
Right. So Pat Melech Tochel, I'm sure you've heard that before. It's like something that people use, like say a lot of the, you know, if they're working hard, or like, you know, like I don't need much, I just need like, you know, this. So like that's always something people use.
Yeah.
And off the bat, it's quite extreme, but it's sort of framing it to us that basically, in a certain sense, the more you have in this world, the less connected you are to it in a certain sense, right? Like here it's saying you need to strip yourself down, and only then can you really connect to the Torah. It's interesting though. We don't have to get too into this right now, but on the flip side, prophecy actually needs someone to be wealthy.
Right.
If I remember, Ena shchina shara el al chacham gibor ve'ashir. Chacham gibor ve'bal koma. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the Gemara talks about how Moses became very wealthy when he had the I don't know if it's a sapphire stone, but the Midrash talks about that the tablets were made out of like this precious stone, and there was left over for it, Moses got to keep. There's another Midrash that he ends up making his wife like a wedding ring out of it, and that also causes the jealousy behind what happens with Korach. There's like a whole Midrash on that. But generally speaking, if the prophet is, the idea is that if the prophet is rich, he's also removed in a certain sense from society with regards to like needing to depend on them, and he's also sort of like a free agent in a certain sense. Well, I was going to say something, but it's not appropriate, so I'll keep it there. They say something about like the kind of money that Joe Rogan has, which allows him to do what he wants to do. There's like a term for that kind of money, right?
Yeah.
So you want to be in that kind of mindset where you could prophesize without being worried necessarily.
Right.
Okay, so kachi darka shel Torah. I actually like this. Such is the way of the Torah, right? So, like we were just going around earlier, that the Mishnah, the Breita before us, right, that was talking about like the lives of the actual Torah scholars, right? The like how it's going. Here we're talking about these lives of sorrow, right? Yeah. Now we need to ask ourselves, like, are these words of encouragement? Are these words of like comfort to the poor? Are we demanding from the rich to abandon everything he has? Like, who are we talking to over here? And the Mishnah is really talking to both, and he's addressing each one individually, but like from a different place. And obviously, feel free to take out the magical book if you have it there to guide us. But a person, really, we have to think about it like a person that their whole livelihood is strained, right? He might think that like, I'm not obligated to engage in the Torah or the study of the Torah in such a matter, right? I barely have any food to survive. I'm dealing with my kids. So I really need to spend my time and my energy trying to enhance my livelihood, my income, and I need to be able to escape like this life of hardship, right? And the Torah is still telling us that as long as you have enough like to live, like the basic necessities, right? And like really eating the bread and the salt, and like they break it down, like you measure your water properly, so you know that like you're going to have enough. Yeah. So you really need to be satisfied with what you have, and at that point engage with the Torah, because the ultimate purpose of the person's existence is to study the Torah. And if according to this argument, if you're diverting your energies, right, to make your world more pleasant, right, you're likely to then leave the world without actually spending time on fulfilling what your actually purpose was in a certain sense. And sorry, any thoughts just on that? But
right, no, just to reiterate what you mentioned is like it talks to the poor person, or the person that doesn't have a lot of is struggling materially, and even though they might think that, okay, I need to put all my effort to make sure that I have everything to eat, or that I improve my situation in this world, even for that person, you still need to engage with the Torah and walk its ways. Like, it's important to still toil in it, even in that situation.
Now for that person, right, we can't leave him hanging. So we end with, fortunate are you and good is to you, right? Fortunate are you. And like, so we let them know that like at the end of the day, right, your spiritual happiness in a certain sense is guaranteed, right? So like it's already it's already guaranteed in this world that you're going to get that. So you don't have to be worried of that in a certain sense. And over time, if like you're spending more and more time in the Torah, you'll also ideally realize and enjoy the benefits of studying the Torah and the beauty of studying the Torah. Now, of course, we have to still ask, because now we just dealt with the poor person. Yeah. Right. And like, it's easier in a certain sense. Like, if that's my life, great. You're telling me that like, just like a poor person needs to give charity, here too, I also need to engage in Torah, and I'm not off the hook. Okay. But what about this wealthy person, right? Are we telling a person right now that like, you can't be wealthy, right? And like to even someone that never, it's not like someone that like made his, like, I don't know, I'm an heir and my father gave me tons of money, right? So it's letting us know such is the way of the Torah, right? They're reminding you that this is what sort of the level of engagement is, right? And it is actually, like we said, it's addressing every person, but it's telling them that to the wealthy, that if you want to merit, right, the crown of Torah, right, you have to minimize pleasures in this world, right? Now we have to also ask, so like if a person is immersed with like all these pleasures of the world, right, why does that mean that he can't progress in Torah study, right? Like I'm very wealthy. I love going to. I'm not talking about me myself right now. Hopefully one day. I'm saying I'm very wealthy, and I pay my taxes. I do my thing. Why can't I also study Torah and go to the study hall? Like what's the problem with that?
Right.
And the knee-jerk reaction or the general answer is like, obviously the Torah is spiritual wisdom, and we want to make sure that you have the sensitive mindset to be absorbing all these subtle things inside the Torah. But if I'm dealing with matters of this world, I'm not going to be able to focus on that, right? If I'm just dealing with like the materialistic world and that's completely consuming me, what's the next thing that's coming out? What's the next thing I need to invest in? I'm not going to be able to properly study the Torah.
Right, and you need to create space for it.
Or the flip side, really, the Torah is my business. The Torah is the thing I'm running after. The kol hayomi sichati, all day if it's my conversation. That's where, if I'm trying to figure out like where to up my analytics, it's on that time. So it's very much like until you, at the very least, until you realize that the Torah really is your business, or the Torah is the thing that you'll be spending most of your time on, then in theory you are going to be clouding your mind. If you're dealing with material pursuits.
Yeah. So again, this might be different than how they mean it, because I'm still what I'm gonna say is still utilitarian in a way. But again, seems to me like the idea that we also talk about, that is also mentioned in the TLC, the different people, like paying attention at the right level, or worship at the right level, right? And like if you focus on the Torah, which is beyond like whatever job you are doing in the world, like you're a carpenter, you're a plumber, you're a software engineer, you work in business, you're an architect, or whatever. Torah is beyond that, and you engaging with that would also enable you to then suddenly see more in, or be more at least attentive, if not successful, in your other dealings, whether it's your family life or business life. So it's really just paying attention, or like focusing on that higher level, or at the right amount, so that then you can it gives you the space to actually.
I think it would be healthy also to look at this with the eyes or the prism that we gave, or the interpretation we gave of stopping to bless a tree, right, in the middle of my learning. Right. And we said, in theory, it's a problem. And then we answered like, well, not if blessing the tree is all part of the learning thing, right? So you could say that like, as long as the focus is still the Torah, then in theory, is there a place for like me to have money once I my priorities are set and I'm oriented properly? Then is there a place for that to be had? And like, I think we'll get into that.
Yeah. And this is kind of like a truism also in my in my field of work, of like business strategy, of like if you don't pay attention to, like, if you don't have like a clear vision or an understanding of where you want to lead your product or business, then you end up creating a monster of your business, because you optimize for this, or you go into this direction, multiple directions, and you don't know what to optimize for.
Like we work.
Like we work, yeah, right. Like I mean,
we live, we bike, we
right. So there's something about being mindful of like the clear value, goal, objective that is leading you, right? So yeah.
Okay, so just again breaking down, I think it's important to break down. It's not such a long Mishnah, but just break down the words they're using over here. So
Right, I
again,
have something on that too.
when it doesn't only just say this is the way of the Torah, this is the way of the Torah, and then it like warns us, right? Pat b'melech tochel, right? You're eating this bread with the salt, and we need to ask, like, okay, so is it saying that we need to specifically eat bread and salt? Like, is that like no more Kellogg's? Like, do I need to just like eat this?
Yeah.
And I have to sleep on the ground? So it's obviously not necessarily like, that doesn't have to be, but like, again, each person needs to be content with what he has, and he can't be drawn to like the endless race of, the material fulfillment, right? So bread really means like, okay, do you have like, your fridge is full. Does that mean now, and do you need the Sub-Zero fridge? Do you need to have like, can you cut your bread if it's not like a baguette from France that was flown in? Like, what is like the level of like, food and we get comfortable with that ourselves.
Right.
And also like, it's sometimes us hard to differentiate. You could be like, okay, I agree. From now on, I'm just going to be focusing on Torah, but like, the coffee shop is next to my house. So like, there's no reason why I can't go there. And the idea is like, well, that's the time you're spending going there, right? Like if you really are okay just making coffee in the house, why do you need to go to the coffee shop? Like to get like, because it's the freshly brewed and things like that. Okay, so like, so no, so not the freshly brewed. And that doesn't mean like you could then get it inside the house. Like obviously there's room for all these things. But again, the idea is, and it's very easy for us to say this because we live in a world where, that's what we're being sold to all the time, right? The Starbucks, where you should be living your life inside the coffee shop, and like, but like, it's all about that experience, which is all taking you away from like what you actually want to be focusing on. Yeah. So we obviously have to realize that like, we really have to be ready ultimately to dedicate our time to the Torah, and not just do like the bare minimum, right? And this is very much like it's like. This is what we talk about, the yoke of the Torah, but this is with great power comes great responsibility, right? This is a great blessing from God that he gives us to participate in his Torah. And the Torah is your labor, right? That's what we really need to be doing. I'll just mention over here that one other point, that what's unique about Judaism, I want to open this up, but there is in Jungian psychology and his Talmid Muvhak, Eric Neumann, who's fantastic, which I definitely recommend reading his books, specifically his roots on Jewish consciousness, his roots on Jewish consciousness, 2 volumes, one on Chassidut, the second volume is Chassidut, but basically he talks about how when he talks about it in his just book on consciousness, he talks about the hero. In the Jewish context, it's the tzaddik. The tzaddik is the hero, and there's fighting the mother, and there's battling the father, and there's like connecting back to the land, and there's like a whole game he plays over there. But either way, he talks about how the pattern repeats itself constantly in all the other myths in the world about, fighting the dragon and slaying the dragon, all those stories that we have to deal with, like the Pinocchio story that Jordan Peterson talks about, going down to the belly of the beast, the transformation, fighting him, that's when you become the tzaddik. It's interesting that in the Bible, though, and interesting, it's also built in, it's also purposely that, yes, there are hints to some of like, the epics of Gilgamesh and things like that, but it's all very much human on human. There's no St. George fighting the dragon. Yes, we have the snake in the Garden of Eden, but besides that, there's almost no interactions of men struggling with some other like creature. It's either be with another man, like Esav and Yaakov are fighting with each other. Yes, you have like the angel, but like,
that's why the angel is such a. It is mentioned as like a very weird scene because it's so.
And the rabbis, way before Jung, also like the Ralbag talks about it being like a dream, right? Or being like more like a psychological thing that's going on internally. But specifically in Judaism, and this just relates back to what I was saying, that it's like great power comes great responsibility. The rest of the world is through these myths are trying to teach itself how to basically like the balance between the intellectual and the let's say the emotional, spiritual, like the masculine and the feminine, and how to do those things together, integrate them in your life. That's when you become the hero. Once you banish the dragon, like you transform. The tzaddik, the Jew, does that through embodied practices that engage you directly with the world. So like if all these stories are being told because you have to, at some point, you have to meet reality. So we're using like the dragons as reality, or this as reality, or like the belly of the beast as reality, which is scary. In Judaism, we don't sugarcoat it. We just say reality is tough. You are going to have to deal with it, right? So Pat B'melech Tochel is saying like, you will have to go down to the belly of the beast with the no food and the no stuff. And like, even there, you still have to transform, engage. I don't know if that was like understandable, but like,
no, it's interesting. I mean, I just had this. It's good. I like it. I liked it. It kind of just reminds me of a moment this morning. I started doing the Rambam 3 chapters. Anyway, so he's talking about Shabbat now, and he's talking about Yeruvin, like the laws of like private space and a public space, and like how you can throw things from a public space to a private space, or you can throw things from a public to a private and like this is exempt, this is all that kind of stuff, and it's like so particular. Not that, so I don't understand it fully, obviously, but like, I mean, so particular. And also like, he gives all these examples of like, why would I throw this? Like, I can't even think like, why would he even, like the examples. But then I had a thought of like, if I worked at the municipality and I had to figure out the law of like, the fire hydrant, like you can't park 12 centimeters from a fire hydrant, and if the fire hydrant is at the corner of the street, it's even 5. Right. So it's not like the Rambam or like the Jewish legal system is like, there's no space for it in the world in other places. It's used, but like in a very, like in places that we don't pay attention to, because they're so of this world and we don't care. They're just done for us. But in Judaism, all of that is like incorporated.
For sure.
Somehow also it's like, instead of that being something that's just, derived from, and from the Rambam, you actually derive it from like the most profound sources, which then give it so much more potential for other insights as well. So it's just kind of like,
I think just like you mentioned though, but like in Judaism, and the Rambam talks about this again, as far as like, the world to, I mean, like alludes to this basically about like how the evil inclination and the good inclination that's inside us, and ultimately we're the ones that are battling with those things. We're battling with that also when I park my car, and did I park close enough? Am I making the white lie? Am I listening to the ordinance? Like all those things ultimately matter down to that point. And so Judaism is forcing us to engage on it. There's no need for, I mean, this relates to everything. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Eloheinu, Hashem Echad. We have no veils. There's no mediators. There's no need for the dragon. There's no need, like I'm saying, it's as real as it gets. That's what you're being invited to partake in.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right.
Okay, so just a small thing about Pad B'melech,
Sure.
From the Magic Book. Another homiletic way of looking at bread and salt, and also the water, if you want to get into it, is like, this is from Midrash Shmuel, without the accent. So it says the bread of Torah should be eaten with salt. So you should enjoy the taste of Torah, right? The tam, the reasoning, and not be embarrassed to ask why. So when you have Torah, which is like bread, you eat it with some kind of flavor, with the melach, with the salt.
I like that.
Tam and reason in Hebrew are the same word. Tam, or taste and reason in Hebrew are the same word.
Correct.
Flavor. Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah. And similarly, the water of Torah should be consumed in small doses. Don't get into it too quickly.
It's supposed to last you all your life, right? So take your time.
Yeah, so those are like small tidbits.
All right. Okay, now, okay, right? If you do so, right? So this, like, now we're being told, first of all, it's interesting that it's in present tense, right? We're being told if you do so, he's talking to us. Like he's breaking the fourth wall, so to speak, right? The title's like now looking to us and saying like, this is for us. And this is, again, part of inviting us, and where he's talking to us, right? You're not just reading this to the person. This was written, like we started in the beginning of Mishnah 6, which is this was written by the rabbis in the same tone of the Mishnah. So you should see it as binding, and we're talking to you, not like to the individual, to Ben, to Chezi, right? So like, it's really, it's also emphasizing what the response would be for like someone wealthy, right? Because in theory, someone wealthy could come and say, okay, let's think about it. I get a knock on the door and a rabbi is asking me, can you please donate to this, support this yeshiva, right? And I come and say like, what are you talking about? Bread with salt, water by measure, deal with it. You're not going to give you stuff like, you know, the same word, right? So we're being answered, we're being told if you do so, right? Like this is sort of like you've been coached, right? We're given the coach over here. Like if you're gonna go knock on someone's door and he's gonna ask you that, so you tell him if you do so, this is okay. Are happy are you and good for you, right? Like it's gonna be good for you as well, right? And this is really, it's like teaching us that everyone first of all should and we said this earlier, according to like his ability and his level, right? And we can't be demanding from others like what others don't have, right? Like, so we have to, and you're getting close to like practicing and preaching, right? Like if they don't have anything to do, who are you to tell them to do those things, right? So we, and if you, Mr. Wealthy, are not eating bread and salt and sleeping on the floor, don't be telling these yeshiva students like, why would I donate for them? Because like, you're not doing that. So, obviously if you're already in that position that you are wealthy, and we're assuming that you're controlling for all those issues, right? Of like that not being the focus, not working on. So at that point, yes, obviously you should give from your wealth and your possessions to supporting the Torah. And then obviously you're supposed to be filled with jubilation because you are participating in the labor of Torah, of course. And that's what we say, Ashrechem v'tov lachem, Ashrechem ba'olam hazeh, v'tov lachem ba'olam haba, right? So like you're being blessed here. Obviously in the world to come, you're going to get your credit, but you're being promised your spiritual good over here. Very cute Mishnah. On to the next.
I'm considering.
Talk to me.
Reading, there's something just from the Ben Ish Chai, like a metaphor.
Please.
They mentioned here. I haven't read this, but I'll read it now. So, so this is from the Ben Ish Chai, offers a wonderful metaphors for the trouble caused by the easy life versus the pleasures of the life of toil. 2 donkeys are carrying their loads. One is carrying a load of salt and suffering under its weight. The other is carrying a load of nearly weightless sponge and going along joyfully, leaping over the mountains, skipping over the hills. After a few hours, they reach a river that they must cross. As soon as the first donkey enters the river, the salt begins to melt, and in just moments is gone. The sack is empty, and the donkey is walking joyfully and lightly through the river. The other donkey enters the water, and his load of sponge becomes filled with a great deal of water that weighs unbearably upon the donkey. The sponge that formerly was its friend has suddenly become its enemy.
That's nice.
Yep.
The Ben Ish Chai.
Okay.
All right. You want to scroll down?
Yes.
Number 5. What do you have in store to us? Al tavakesh. Okay. Al tavakesh gdula le'atzmecha. ואל תחמוד כבוד יותר מלימודך עשה, ואל תתאווה לשולחנם של מלכים, ששולחנך גדול משולחנם, וכתרך גדול מכתרם, ונאמן הוא בעל מלאכתך, שישלם לך שכר פעולתך. Do not seek greatness for yourself, and do not lust for honor. More than you study, do. Desire not the table of kings, for your table is greater than theirs, and your crown is greater than theirs. And fruitful is your employer to pay you the rewards of your work. Okay? Very, very, very nice. What are we being told over here? Okay, so here, how do I want to frame this? Should I talk about the table and the crowns?
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
I guess I can start maybe with something because I just listened to it yesterday.
Sure. Go ahead.
And probably
I'll gather my thoughts.
Yeah, you'll probably talk about this, but just as an anecdote, I was listening to something from Elie Wiesel. It's Holocaust Memorial Day in Israel, and I guess like at least so I was looking at some Holocaust related material. So I listened to some Elie Wiesel talking about some of his interactions with the Rebbe. And he said when he first saw him, he saw he saw him presiding over the congregation with all his disciples, and he immediately understood. He immediately saw the greatness of the Rebbe, but also he immediately understood the person because he says that he saw the suffering of the whole people on his face. So that observation, that insight, I think connects here about do not seek the greatness for yourself.
Right.
There's a price that you pay when you really become attuned to, what did you say at the beginning? Shlomi kishlomami? Like my. How is it? Shlomi
kishlomami. I am as my people are.
Right. So it can take a toll on you to be so connected.
So actually, the route I'm going to go about this, I think, is a little different, but I actually like that idea, which is like, because traditionally, what I've learned is that this is talking about more. Well, we'll get into it, and then we'll see. But I want you, if I don't go back to it, please remind me about that, because I'd like to see how we can integrate that inside. But this Mishnah is really talking about, okay, it's starting the conversation with someone that already got. This person did choose the path of Torah, right? And he's achieving their goal. He did it. Like he's the guy. He's the tzaddik we were talking about. Now we're talking to this guy, right? He followed the path, he labored of it, but now in a certain sense, like there's a next challenge, right? Like you got all the way to the top, everyone sees you, you're the great guy. The next challenge is okay. So there's the trials that are waiting for the tzaddik, for the Torah scholar, and we're telling him, which is what we just read over here. All these things are for him. Do not see, like, this is not for the Joe Schmo that's still trying to figure out if he should go to the study hall. Right now, it could also be applied, but now we're really talking about the person that did become the scholar, right? These are things that he needs to be. These are things that he needs to be concerned about, right? So after, like, he's in a certain sense, he lived the life of hardship, right? Where he was eating the bread and the salt, and he's sleeping on the ground, like we were talking about, like in the last Mishnah. And
so the sequel,
he got the crown of Torah, right? We're saying over here, and your crown is greater than theirs, right? He already achieved the crown of Torah, right? So now we have these new trials, and these trials are broken down to, let's say, different warnings. We'll look at these warnings. So the first warning is al tefekesh gdula le'atzmecha, and in the seeking greatness, I guess, is pretty self-explanatory, but obviously we're doing it out of the love for the Torah. Right, we're not doing it out of our own honor, and that's quite obvious. We discussed that many times. And the real question is, like, am I studying the Torah for its own sake or not? Right? And if I take the honor for myself, then I'm obviously not doing it for its own sake. And only if I don't care about this, I'm not doing it for my personal gain, then I'm not asking it I'm not asking anyone to give me that greatness. It's being thrusted upon me, basically, but I'm not asking for it. Now, it doesn't mean, right, that and that's why it's important to remember that we don't see greatness, right? We could rejoice in the greatness of Torah of scholars, right? But we are honoring the Torah that they learned, and not necessarily, who they are. And this, in a certain way, relates to what you were saying with the Rebbe, which is like, he says, I see the weight of the people on your shoulders, so I know you took on so much. Mm-hmm. I would say, like, that's true, but if you identify that in someone, that means you're identifying that greatness, and he's not asking for it, right? I'm identifying it in them,
right?
And that's okay. It's like, we're not saying he's not great. We're just saying he doesn't say he's great about himself.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there's nothing we could really there's nothing we really could gain from that. Now, on the flip side, though, if I'm going to accept things from some rabbi, and I have a panel of rabbis speaking, I want it to be full of, esteemed colleagues, esteemed rabbis that are around me. So it's okay to recognize that, but no one's chasing that around. So it's very important that the people that are in that position are worthy of that position, and the community senses their honor and greatness.
Mm-hmm.
All that's true. And we want that. It's important that it's there, and it's more than that. It's important that you and I speak about how great the Rebbe was. That's also okay. But that's sort of where it has to stay. You can't ask for it. Let it happen on its own, right? Then we say, Ve'al tachmod kavod, right? And do not lust after honor, right? So here too, there's a reality where I studied a lot, I labored a lot, but I don't achieve greatness, right? I remain like the unknown person that no one talks about. It doesn't mean I'm not a great Torah scholar, just no one even knows my name. No one cares about me, and I'm being like offended by this, right? So that kind of person could be sitting in his room getting all upset, like, how did no one recognize me? How did no one give me what I wanted, right? So he's just sitting down eagerly waiting for like this desired honor of his, but it's never actually going to happen. And like, if you're expecting to be honored, it just shows that you're not worthy of it.
Yeah,
because that's what you think you're owed, right? And we've learned also in the past, Mishor l'defa kavod, right? The kavod runs away from him, honor runs away from him, and he who runs away from honor, from greatness and honor, they chase after him, right? So and we, it's very different, obviously, but like even in the world of dating, right? It's sort of like, ignore her and then she'll call you back because like the chase of what's happening because you're giving too much attention. Mm-hmm. Like, humans do these games, obviously.
Right.
Also the people that are chasing honor and greatness or power, they're not realizing where their aspirations are going to take them ultimately. And the people that are not chasing at it, they'll realize that they're honored and loved once like people around them have already been galvanized, and you can see you're building something a lot healthier than running after this and trying to turn it into something specifically that you think you're supposed to get. And then we're told another thing is, יותר מלימודך עשה. More than you study, do. This is very embodied, touch grass, not talky, be there, right? So it lets us know that it's the Mishnah is urging us to implement the knowledge into practice.
Right.
If you have you have to take the substance. I'm blanking on the word right now.
Substantive? No, I don't know. The substance of.
No. Oh man, come on, Chezi. Forget it. I'm nervous. I'm going to screw it up again. You got to take your wisdom, and you got to take it, and even things that exceed your wisdom or exceed your knowledge, and actually try to act. Go out there, jump in like Nachshon ben Aminadav into the deep water. Okay, you have to do that. Now, you could of course ask, how do I fulfill more than I know? And the answer to that will be that, which is like naturally, once you are studying for Torah for its own sake, right? You take it very seriously. Sometimes you take it more stringently. You try to beautify it, and by doing that, obviously, slowly you start doing more than just what you learned, right? You learned up until page 6. Now you jumped in, and then naturally you start moving on to page 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, just because the way you're interacting with the Torah yourself.
Yeah.
Anything that the book has to add, or we'll keep on going?
You're hitting on all the things. Yeah, I mean, Rashi offers, like you said, the pshat interpretation of doing more than you do, more good deeds than your knowledge, right? Than what you study.
Right.
There is somebody that this is long, right? Yeah, others have. Don't cover how more than you are accustomed to, or for more than you have studied. You tell me. There are some. They said that some people connected to the previous statement do not covet or lust for honor more than what you have studied for.
Okay, so basically saying if I'm in high school, right, I shouldn't be coveting spiral dynamics, right? I should understand that like this is not where you are right now. Mm-hmm. Okay, sure. Yeah. I hear that. I accept. Al tit'aveh l'shulchanam shel melachim, right? We said that we don't want to. So there's a whole game over here with the crown and the table. Don't desire the table of the kings. It makes me think of the round table of King Arthur. Yeah. But right, obviously the table symbolizes wealth, just like we said earlier. The crown is would be a symbol of kavod, honor, right? Yeah. So that's like what we were saying earlier, right? So I have wealth and I have honor. So like we said, we spoke earlier about wealth, and it's not like inherently bad, but like only if you know how to use it properly and not fall into its traps, right? But not every person is also gifted both table and the crown, right? It's not that everyone gets to have like be wealthy and have like this honor of the crown of Torah. Sometimes you could be wealthy, sometimes you could have one or the other.
Right? Is that from Brachot? I remember. I think I just like what you just said. Shtei Shulchanot. I think.
Shtei Shulchanot, correct. Those are the two tables of having both of them.
Right. Yeah. I just read that in Brachot.
Now. And obviously, also we have a lot of people that don't enjoy, like obviously they don't enjoy any wealth in this world, right? And they just and you know they as much effort that they put inside, obviously that will be the reward ultimately. But it's reminding us that we shouldn't covet their tables because the gifts, the goodness that we should be anticipating for us is much greater than what they're having right now, right? Like just like in the world to come, we're being offered like a lot more than this. It's also interesting. While we're being made all these promises of what we're going to get, famously in Yeshaya it says "Ayin lo ra'ata," right? Like no one ever saw like what these gifts actually are. Like the Torah does talk about. If you do this, then I'm going to give water. And if you do this, you're going to live a long life. But like, as far as like the exact gifts of what you have for like, the study of Torah or not coveting after these things, we're not being told what is it in English? 1 second. Yeshayahu Ayin Lorata. Okay, that would be 64. Isaiah 64, Gimel 3. No eye has seen, O God, besides you, what he has prepared for those who wait for him. Okay, so we don't know what those gifts are, right. But gifts nevertheless are being promised. And, right. I mean, there's also, there's always people saying that like, and the people that are eating, the kings that are eating from the table in this world, they're going to consume all the good in like, in the next life. Like, so I don't necessarily like just because someone is rich doesn't mean like he's using it all up right now. There could be
consuming all the evil in the next life. You mean? Yeah. If they're doing good in this world, then they will get. Then what they have is all the suffering in the next world.
Right. So, I mean, again, obviously we don't want to, we can't
Well, that's what you said. You just said it, good and good. So I'm just saying, if they have good, what you're saying, some people say that if the kings, they enjoy their time now, it actually means that they're going to suffer in the world.
Correct. They're going to suffer. And I'm saying like, I don't necessarily believe that like, just because someone is wealthy, that means like, they're not going to get anything in the world to come. They could be great dudes, right? Like, the question would be is if they're using that wealth properly, like we just said, right? Yeah. And the idea would be, are you wealthy and now realizing that you want to be moving towards prophecy? Right? Be the guy that's right. Like now that you're wealthy, try to also get the other a few things, right? And be a Baal Koma and be a Chacham and be a Gibor as well, because you're already in a shir.
Right.
That would be like, that wouldn't be squandering what you have. Okay. The kitrecha gadol miketram. Right? And your crown is greater than theirs, right? We're saying, don't be saying this either. Right? So like, just like we said with the table here too, don't do this. And like we know, even in this world, dictators, rulers, kings, presidents, they rise, they fall, but the Torah scholars remain constant in their position.
Right. So it's a little bit of like what we mentioned before about like at the right level. Like if you focus on the higher level, obviously without completely disregarding or abandoning the lower levels, the world itself. But if you do focus, if you do focus on the higher level, then that permeates your life. I mean, that is higher than obviously that is higher than the lower level, and it permeates them. It sustains them more.
And I would say, like, aside the fact that like we appreciate the Torah scholar more than just like some ruler, right? Everyone also recognizes the value of wisdom over wealth and honor, generally speaking. Like people like realize that like that's value more, and everyone also is aware of the personal effort someone has to do to achieve that, right? Like if I just have money, that doesn't mean anything. But if I'm like the scholar, it must mean that time was spent, money was spent. And I mean, we've been doing this for a while right now, and you would have no problem telling me what the quotes of Hillel, right? Be like the disciples of Aaron, or what is hateful for you, don't do unto others, right? Which you remember forever. Do you remember like what Alexander Yanai said? Or do you remember what, like I'm saying, like what Ramesses II, you remember that great quote of his? So the answer is like, no. And like, yes, things are written. You could go there and you could be like, he said X and he says Y, but it is so clear that like in the long term, if you think about it, like in the long-term perspective, if we're thinking about things from like a marathon point of view, that like the words that the Mishnah is telling us are clearly evident, right? Which is like our table, like your table, like the tzaddik, the scholar's table is greater than theirs, and the crown is greater than theirs, because ultimately these people disappear. Right. These tables go empty, their crowns go empty, but ours is eternal.
Right. So what do you say to the literal clowns that say that this sounds like some nerds copy that they can't eat with the proper kids?
Sounds like some nerds. Right. That's what they keep on telling you. You guys will be cool in the next world. Exactly.
It's a little bit
like that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's like saying, like, don't worry, what you're learning now, you'll be able to go to college, and they like, and they will still be whatever the stereotype, like the 80s movie.
I mean, I would say that it does fit into like, there's like the jock glory days, which like end, obviously. So we have to keep that into consideration, but that was good.
Yeah.
There's hope. There's always hope, West Coast refugee. Okay. And lastly, v'ne'eman hu ba'al melachtecha she'shalem lecha sachar pe'ulatecha. And faithful is your employer, obviously God, to pay you the rewards of your work. Right? We've read that phrase in a few other places that he's going to end up paying you, and obviously we understand why he will pay you. Why we're talking about like again in future tense over here, because ultimately we know that the reward we receive is in the next world. There's all the benefits that we could hopefully gain in this world, which is like the insight and all the things that the Torah will do for us and if we try to embody it, everything we could gain from it. But having said that, the gifts that we said in Isaiah that we don't know what they are, they're ultimately promised for us in the world to come. Hence, the terminology over here is in future tense, obviously, but we are being told over here that it's still important to remember when you're looking at these other people's tables, these other kings, these other crowns, that ultimately your relationship is with the master of the universe, right? Mm-hmm. And you really need to be focused on that relationship, because it's a much longer story being had than just the one that's happening in this little world right now. And sticking the course, staying learning, right? You'll ultimately realize that your table is greater than theirs. And this also has to do with, in a certain sense, like you yourself as the table, which is their table. Yes, it might have like some good food on it, right? But what are its foundations strong? Mm-hmm. But you studying and embodying the Torah, you yourself become the whole table itself. And this also relates to why we look at a table as an altar, as like a small altar after the temple was destroyed, and even the altar itself. Why the priests put blood on the ears and toes and hands of the priest, because they themselves are going to resemble the altar. There's a sense where we ourselves want to, in a certain sense, sacrifice ourselves by fully engaging in Torah study. But by doing that, we could feel that we could feel just like we're being loyal to him and we are being faithful to him, we too could feel that he's going to be faithful for us as well. And it's not because of it's not only because what we achieved, right? Like the kings that have a wealthy table, that's also a level of their achievement, right? Like it's saying, don't be jealous of their Prada, right? And don't be jealous of their Gucci. That's because God doesn't reward us based on the fact if we manage to get Gucci. God rewards us based on the fact if we is based on our labor and our investment inside, right? So it's very less about like, but did I make it to level 5? Did you try to get as far as you can? That's what God wants to see. The Torah is your labor.
Mm-hmm. And there's like an inspirational piece here. So I think I'll read it.
Please.
It's connected. And it says that after all is said and done, the evil inclination seeks some means to convince a person to refrain from Torah. The evil inclination says, since you have sinned, you are not suited to study Torah. In fact, your study of Torah increases life for the impure energies of the world. The brighter, therefore, this last piece about the faithfulness of the employer, therefore it concludes by saying that one should not pay heed to such claims and should rather study Torah. For ultimately, every person will turn fully to God, and at that time, all the Torah and mitzvot that he possesses will be elevated to the realm of holiness. He will then receive the reward for his work. That's
will be elevated to the what?
Will be elevated to the realm of holiness.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I mean, Rihal talks about this also, how everyone phase shifts. Mm-hmm. Talk about also why we don't do animal sacrifice, because they themselves phase shift again to like this higher level basically as well. Mm-hmm. As we go towards angels, they become more like humans, and all Israelites become like the priests, and all the world nations become like the Jews. So there's like everyone's moving. There's a term like that in I'm forgetting the exact term right now about, let's say, zero energy. Basically, you always have to have like this tension, which allows things to grow. Mm-hmm. If there isn't that tension to allow it to push on to the next level, like you always have to have like that what's the term? 1 second. Now it's gonna drive me crazy. What does it say over here? Become the shulchan or mizbeach.
Can I?
Right. Okay. Not lechem hapanim. It's the mizbeach, and the mizbeach of, well, in the temple, even though we put blood on the altar, right, the high priest also put blood on the priests themselves to embody that they themselves are the altar. After the destruction, all the altars become our own personal tables in the house, and that's why.
Right. So I mean, like meaning
Good.
Meaning that, like, I mean, the shulchan, I mean, the dinner table, where we have all our family gatherings, where we actually talk about the things that are important to us, like that is where we sacrifice, right? Like we can either have a dinner table with Netflix in the background, and again, it's not that there's anything wrong with that. Like, I mean, you can have entertainment nights, but right, you can have a table that's all about Netflix, and you can have a table it's all about something else, right? You're sacrificing something, and that's like, and you're taking the whole family to engage with that. So whatever you're engaging with, that's your sacrifice, and that's why the table might be considered as that.
And that's why every Jewish mom has told her kid, I mean, if they're a religious Jewish mom told their kid, if their kids put their legs on the table, what are you doing? It's a mizbeach. You have to get off it. And you're like, right, of course. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Right.
The term I was looking for, potential difference, right? So if the difference is 0, right, the electric current stops flowing, right? And then there's no phase shift, basically. So you always have to have this potential difference, which allows all these things basically to phase shift, to get to the collective sanctity, so to speak, and, like, move on to the holiness, as you were saying. Yeah. All right. On that note, sir, we will continue next week. How many more do we have?
We have 6.
6 is the big one, right? Yeah.
Big one, and I think the 7 is also a big one, if I'm not mistaken. Wow. 7, and then 8. 8 is a big one.
9.
Okay, maybe 9 is also big.
Thank God. How fortunate we are that we get to learn so much.
And then I have a friend that told me that this is what, like, the Musar, they do this instead of, like, the Sfirot. Is this what they do?
That's 10. Okay, that's also a Mama Gemma. 11.
That's it.
11. All right. Okay, and then we have to see what we're going to do next, but we still got some time. I think we have like another 2 months.
Yeah.
Maybe a month.
Give or take.
Yeah. All right, sir.
Good to see you, Chezi.
We'll talk.
We will talk. Okay.
Take care.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.